We will start the class now. See, till now we have covered all the 7 topics of ethics GS4 syllabus of UPSC. So now we propose to take up uh, case studies which may be important from the point of view of maybe 2026 exam. So in that sequence, today we will take up a few case studies, and in next classes also we will be taking up a few such important case studies. Uh, Today we are going to take up uh, 3 case studies which are quite important from point of view of examinations. So let us start with those case studies so that we can understand it further. See, first case study is related with biometric exclusion of certain very vulnerable group beneficiaries in a PDS scheme. So I will just read the case studies. One more thing I can tell you from the last 2-3 years exam papers. Nowadays, case studies, they are giving quite long case studies, maybe about 250 to 300 words. And complex also because a number of layered issues are involved in that, ethical issues are involved in that. Plus, also 3 to 4 questions follow each case study. And questions are also not simple questions. So that what is happening. So let us see this case study. I will read it for you and then we will try to see what the questions follow and what will be the answer. So you are district magistrate of a drought prone district where the public distribution system has recently been fully digitized through Aadhaar linked biometric authentication and centralized data verification. The reform has reduced reported leakages by nearly 30%, eliminated several duplicate ration cards, and received appreciation from the state government. The model is being considered for replication across other districts. During an unannounced field visit to a remote tribal block, you find that authentication failures are disproportionately affecting elderly, persons with worn fingerprints, migrant laborers whose Aadhaar is linked with in another district, and persons with disabilities unable to physically access biometric devices. A credible NGO report indicates that nearly 4% of the beneficiaries in certain pockets have not received ration for over 2 months due to repeated authentication failure or server outages. While no starvation deaths are officially recorded, local health workers report increased malnutrition and seasonal migration. Food Department argues that introducing manual override or offline distribution will reopen avenues for diversion and political interference. Finance Department emphasizes fiscal discipline and warns against weakening the reform's credibility. The minister informally advises you to avoid mixed signals that could undermine the state's digital governance image. Meanwhile, media narratives increasingly portray the issue as technology versus human rights. Now, if strict enforcement continues, exclusion may persist silently. If relaxed, leakages may re-emerge and the reform may lose momentum. So this is basically the dilemma. You must submit a written policy recommendation to the state government in this scenario. Now the questions are: analyze the ethical conflict between efficiency, fiscal accountability, and substantive equality in welfare delivery. Second question is, to what extent can limited exclusion be tolerated in pursuit of systemic reform? Third question is, how should administrative discretion function in automated technology-driven governance systems? And fourth question, propose a balanced institutional solution and justify it ethically and administratively. So these are 4 questions which follow this case study. Now we'll try to deal each question one by one. Now, before I start the answers, I will just like to say, see, while writing the answers, you have to quote various ethical theories, applicable ethical theories, which are relevant. And also, constitutional morality comes in the picture where constitutional provisions are involved. So, constitutional articles also need to be quoted. In some cases, even Supreme Court cases or some other documents also need to be quoted as a reference. So, this is a general principle we should do. And as you also know, every answer in UPSC case studies has to be given in 250 words. So, word limit also to be adhered, because unless you adhere the word limit, first thing, you will not get the good marks, and second thing, you will not be able to complete the because usually GS4 paper is quite lengthy paper. A lot of words you have to write for, because 6 case studies itself will be more than 1500 words. Then we have 7 other questions. So basically, the word limit has to be kept in mind. Now let us go answers one by one. Now, what is the ethical conflict in this whole case? Let us try to understand that. This case shows a clear tension between efficiency and physical accountability, because once you introduce digital reforms or digital governance, these efficiency and physical accountability are achieved on the one side, and substantive equality and dignity on the other, because a number of vulnerable beneficiaries are missed out. So digitization has reduced leakages, of course, which is important for public trust and responsible use of funds. So one good thing has happened. However, when elderly persons, migrants, and disabled individuals are denied ration due to authentication failures, the system fails its core purpose. So this is also again very, very important. And as I told, we'll mention relevant articles in the Constitution, relevant principles. So here, under Article 21, the right to life includes access to food and dignity. As per Raoult's difference principle also, policies must benefit the least advantaged. So a welfare system that saves money but excludes vulnerable citizens cannot be ethically justified. So this is our answer as far as question 1 is concerned. Now let us go to question 2. Can the limited exclusion be justified in such big reforms? Because usually small minor problems will come up in any reform. So let us try to see how we can frame the answer. Some error is unavoidable in large reforms. However, in food security schemes, even small exclusion percentages can cause real hardship. Amartya Sen's capability approach stresses actual access to basic necessity. In such schemes, exclusion error is morally more serious than inclusion errors. Therefore, marginal exclusion cannot be treated as acceptable if it affects survival of vulnerable groups. So this is our answer of question 2. Now, what should be the role of administrative discretion? Now, let us see third question. Technology should assist governance, not replace human judgment. Following the principle of proportionality and natural justice, limited and documented override mechanisms should exist to address genuine hardship cases. So this is our answer for third. And what will be the solution which will be proposed to state government? I would recommend controlled manual authentication in hardship cases, doorstep verification in remote areas, time-bound grievance redressal, and periodic social audits. This approach balances reform integrity with justice and protects both efficiency and human dignity. So this is a via media solution which needs to be proposed. So this is our first case study, which is very, very important from exam point of view, because all these case studies which I have selected are of quite live issues basically, and contemporary issues, which usually keep on happening in the field in administrative scenario. So therefore, this case study has been framed accordingly. Now we'll go to case study number 2. This case study, the main topic is industrial development versus intergenerational displacement. So this is basically the more critical theme or main theme of this case study. Again, let us now, I will go read it out so that we can understand. You are district collector overseeing acquisition of multi-crop agricultural land for mega manufacturing cluster projected to generate 40,000 jobs over 10 years. Compensation is above market value and rehabilitation packages comply with statutory norms. However, independent experts warn that long-term groundwater depletion and loss of fertile land may affect future food security. Elder farmers argue that compensation cannot replace intergenerational livelihood stability. Youth groups are divided in their opinion. Political leadership stresses that delay may cause investors to withdraw. So there is a pressure from political leadership to finalize the land acquisition as early as possible. Environmental clearance has been granted, but litigation is pending in High Court. If you proceed swiftly, development gains may materialize. If you delay, investors' confidence may erode and employment opportunities may vanish. So you have to recommend either continuation or modification or reconsideration. So basically, this is the dilemma. The questions which are following this case study are: how should intergenerational justice influence development decisions? This is first question. Second is legal compliance equivalent to moral legitimacy? Third is, how should uncertainty about long-term ecological impact be factored? And fourth is, what course of action would you adopt? So now let us see what will be the model answers for these four questions. Again, we'll stick to 250 words word limit for all the answers. Now, one thing before I proceed, I will tell, see, 250 words need not to be divided equally among the four options, four questions or three questions, because some of the questions, they require explanation and bigger answers. Some may be answered in 2-3 sentences also. So depends on the need and necessity. You have to limit the words for each each question which follows the case system. But overall, it has to be 200 words. So let us not confuse that 250 words means all four parts, four questions have to be equally divided and equally word limits have to be maintained. So that is not the case, because definitely some parts will require more explanation and there more number of words will be required. Now let us see what is the answer for this. First is intergenerational justice and development. See, intergenerational justice means that present development should not compromise the rights of future generations. In simple language, intergenerational justice has been explained. As stated in Brundtland report 1987, which is very, very key report, needs to be referred whenever there is a talk of intergenerational justice. Sustained development must meet present needs without harming future capacity. Acquiring fertile multi-crop land and risking groundwater depletion may generate employment today, but weaken long-term food security. The idea also reflected in Edmund Burke's view of society as a partnership between generations. Society is a partnership between generations. Suggests that we are trustees of resources, not absolute owners. Therefore, development must balance economic growth and ecological responsibility. That is intergenerational justice. Now, second question, whether legal compliance is equivalent to moral legitimacy. Now, let us try to see what can be the model answer for that. Statutory compliance ensures procedural legality, but moral legitimacy requires fairness and social acceptance. Under Article 21, the right to life includes livelihood and environmental protection, as recognized in Olga Telis and later environmental cases, MC Mehta cases. So MC Mehta cases also you can mention, because MC Mehta cases are basically all environmental cases. A number of series of MC Mehta cases are there. So even if compensation is generous, it may not substitute intergenerational livelihood stability. Thus, legality does not automatically ensure ethical legitimacy. So this is second question. Now, third, regarding ecological uncertainty, where long-term environmental damage is uncertain but potentially irreversible, the precautionary and public trust doctrine, these are two important principles of environment protection. So precautionary principle and public trust doctrine should guide decisions. State holds natural resources in trust for citizens and future generations. So accordingly, the natural resources should be exploited or used. Now, what will be the course of action which will be prescribed? I would recommend modification with strict safeguards, phased acquisition, exclusion of high yield zones, groundwater regulation, independent environmental monitoring, and skill transition for farmers, because some farmers may be affected. So for them, skill upgradation, skill training, etc., can be arranged. This balances employment generation with sustainability and constitutional morality. So this is our second case study. Now let us go to third case study. So this case study, the theme is police firing and moral responsibility. You are superintendent of police in a district where a protest against a new land policy turns violent. Initially peaceful, the protest escalates after rumors spread that police detained student leaders. Government vehicles are set on fire, a police station is attacked, and several personnel are injured. After repeated warnings, tear gas and lathi charge failed to disperse the crowd. Firing is ordered. 3 civilians die. Preliminary reports indicate the situation was rapidly deteriorating and officers feared loss of control. However, later video footage shows that some protesters were retreating at the time shots were fired. The state government publicly praises the police for decisive action. Opposition leaders demand judicial inquiry. Families of the deceased allege excessive and unnecessary force. Within the police force, morale depends on whether leadership stands by them. Among citizens, trust depends on visible fairness and accountability. So basically, this is the dilemma here. You must submit a detailed report and recommend further course of action. Now, the questions which follow this case study: how should proportionality and necessity be assessed in fast evolving violent situations? Second, does political endorsement influence ethical evaluation of police action? Third, how can accountability be ensured without demoralizing the force? And fourth, what recommendation would you make and why? So now let us go the answers one by one. First is proportionality and necessity. In violent crowd situations, force must satisfy the constitutional tests of necessity and proportionality flowing from Article 21 and doctrine of proportionality evolved by Supreme Court. Firing is justified only when there is imminent threat to life and no lesser alternative remains. So this is very, very important key consideration. Key factors must be examined. Where repeated warnings issued, was firing aimed below the waist, had the crowd dispersed or was still attacking. Now here in this case study, already we know video evidence showing repeated retreating protesters raises concerns whether force continued beyond necessity. Therefore, an objective reconstruction of sequence and threat level is essential. So basically here there is a doubt because protesters were retreating when the force was used. So the doubt is, raised automatically that whether such force was necessary or that firing was necessary. So, this has to be raised here. Political endorsement issue, now we'll discuss in second. Political praises cannot determine ethical correctness. So even if police is being praised or even if their action is being praised, this is not equivalent to ethical correctness. Under rule of law, as explained by Evidici, legality prevails over executive approval. Ethical evaluation must be based on professional standards, not political narratives. So this is very, very important. State endorsement cannot override constitutional accountability. Now, how accountability can be maintained without demoralizing the police force? So as a superintendent of police, I bear command responsibility. Following PUCL versus State of Maharashtra, as I told, Supreme Court cases also needs to be referred if relevant. So following PUCL versus State of Maharashtra, 2014 SC case, Supreme Court case, guidelines, a time-bound judicial or magisterial inquiry must be ordered. Transparency protects both citizens and honest officers. Accountability strengthens professionalism. Impunity weakens institutional legitimacy. So following this case, inquiry has to be ordered. Now, what will be the recommendation based on this case study's facts? I would recommend an independent inquiry, interim compensation to the victims without prejudging guilt, suspension of involved officers only if prima facie excess appears, and review of crowd control SOPs, including body camera use and better intelligence management. Now, this approach upholds constitutional morality, preserves morale, and restores public trust. So, basically, this completes the case studies which I wanted to discuss today. In next class, again, I will be taking some other case studies based on contemporary basically situations, because usually in exam case studies are inspired by current affairs, contemporary affairs. So I will also try to take up some 10 to 12 case studies in next 2-3 classes, so that we are hold of the situation. Now, if you want me to take any specific case study, you can suggest in comment section. One more class I want to take regarding the how to basically what ethical theories can be used. Earlier classes also have taken. You can see the videos on YouTube channel. But one more I just want to take, what ethical theories are applicable in which case studies. So that also I will try to explain maybe in future classes. So with this, I complete today's class. Now, thank you for joining today. We'll meet again in next class with other contemporary case studies. Thank you.